Hello there and welcome back to Craft Therapy. We have been undertaking a brand new project for the last 3 weeks or so, and we are finished with phase 1 of the project, which is the border motifs, right? What we're now going to be doing is the placemat. But before I do the placemat, I want to show you yellow, green. Here we go. I want to show you the I'm trying to find the word. I want to show you kind of the direction in which we're going. Whereas the border motifs had 3 levels, the placemats have 4. So the placemat, well, 5 if you count the edging. So the placemat has a center section, then we change color for another section, change color for a bigger section, another smaller section, and then we have the edging. So what I'll be focusing on this week is this middle section here. And this middle section really and truly is similar to the border motif, which, if you can recall, the border motif started with 5 chains, and then we did the 9 double crochet with a space in between each, and then we did 27 stitches, which would be 2 in the double crochet, 1 in the space, and then we upped it again. I'm not gonna try and max out how much it was, where we had a 2 2 1 2 2 1. So it's similar. The only difference is that we're not going to be putting on this last row that had the 2 2 1. We're not going to be putting on that row. But let me just get started and remind you of what we did, right? So we start, of course, with our slip knot on the hook, and then we chain 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, slip stitch into that first chain to form our circle, have our circle, chain up 4, which would count as a double crochet with a single chain space, and then we put 8 more double crochets into the circle for a total of 9, and we put a space in between each double crochet that we're putting into the circle. So we should end up with 9 double crochets, including our chain 3 counting as a double crochet, with a chain space in between each. So let's just do that. That's 4, 5, 6. I notice, of course, I'm weaving in my tail as I go around, making sure I catch it in the stitch. 7, 8, and 9. There we go. So that is 9 double crochets, including our chain 3 with a single chain space in between. And then we're going to do a single chain because we started with a double crochet and we need to keep it balanced, so we end with a chain, and then we go into that 3rd chain and slip stitch to join. Then we go chain 3 and we put a double crochet into that same space for a total of 2 double crochets into each double crochet. In the chain 1 space we put a single well, we put 1 double crochet. So it's 2 2 2 2 1 2 1. That's basically the pattern that we're working our way around with. And this is the only similarity between the border motif and the placemat that we're working on right now. Because whereas after this row, as I would have mentioned earlier, after this row with the border motif, we would have gone into each of these double crochets in a 2 2 1 pattern. We're going to be stopping right here, and I'm staying on camera with you because it's not a very long process, so we're just sticking around together. You know, normally I don't hold you hostage, but because it's pretty simple, let's do it together now. I'm just double checking to make sure I haven't missed anything. So 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1. Sometimes working on the ones that I've been working on in the background, it's easy to miss a stitch, and then I have to keep counting and going back and pulling out, and you know, not very often, but just to say, you know, it's easier to count as you work, so that way you don't get to the end of a row and wonder why your stitches are not adding up. You know what I mean? Almost done. More than halfway around. I have been working on the motifs in the background because, as I would have mentioned, this is a massive set that we're working on. I'm working on a 12-piece set. Yeah, my ambition is that high, and added to the fact that I have done it before, so I know I can do it. It's just going to be pretty time consuming, but I know I can do it. I'm up for the challenge, right? And of course, this set is for sale at the end of this project. And I am actually doing like 3 sets in one. So one set will have a gold center like this. Another set will have the green center. Another set will have the black center. So if I need to split up the set, I can do that. The only thing is that it's one runner. But if someone wants to purchase just 4 or maybe just 6, sorry, I'm not objecting to splitting the set, so to speak, and perhaps making a runner to go with the set that I am selling. Sorry about that. I'm not, you know, I'm not going to be dismissive of such a suggestion, because I know not everyone maybe has a table that is going to be seating 12, unless you're going to use some of them like my sister did. She used some of them as doilies. So I'm at the end of the row. So I should have a single space into which I did that crochet. So I'm just going to now find the 3rd chain and join with a slip stitch. Now here is where we divert from the border motif pattern. Alright, should I bring you in close? I think our focus has been good. I don't want to mess with it, but you know, I like to get you close when I'm moving on to something new. Alright, I think that's good. Now we're going to be doing V-stitches. And let us remind ourselves what the V-stitch is. We chain up 5, because this 5 is going to count as a double crochet and 2 spaces, 2 chain spaces. In the same space, we put a double crochet. That's our V-stitch. Now, whereas for the border motif, we skipped 4 and put it in the 5th, for this one, we are skipping 2 and putting it into the 3rd. And also we're going to have only 2 chains in between. All right, so we do our 2 chains, skip 2, put it in the third. So we have a double crochet, 2 chains in the same space, double crochet again. And that's our V-stitch. All right, let's do another one. Chain 2, did we do 1 chain already? Yes, we did. That's what happens when you take your eyes off the piece. Chain 2, skip 2, 1, 2 into the third, double crochet, chain 2 into the same space, double crochet, and there we have our V-stitches going around. All right, so I'm going to continue. I'm not going to hold you hostage for this. I just wanted to show you that we only stopped at that row rather than moving on to the 2 2 1 row. We stopped at that 2 1 2 1 row, and we are now putting V-stitches in, and we're skipping 2 and not 4 like we did for the border motifs, and it's 2 spaces in between each V-stitch. So I'll bring you back when I'm at the end so that I can show you what we do with the next row in this placemat center. So we are now about to do our last V-stitch. Chain 2 into the same space, chain 2, and we find the third chain for that 5 chain that we started with, and we slip stitch, and there we have that. Then into each of the V-stitches we're going to put our shell stitches. So to start that, we're going to slip stitch into the V-stitch. So we have our thread now in the V-stitch, chain 3, and then we put 2 more double crochets. Remember, when we're starting our shell row, we always have to start with a chain 3, and our shell stitches are 2 chains in between, and then we put 3 double crochet stitches in here. Three. Now, in between each of our V-stitches, in the motif, in the border motif, we put 3 chains in between our shell stitches. For this one, we're going to put 4, and I'm going to explain why, because you're going to see it looking a little bit wonky. By the time we start going around, it begins to look very curled up and spacey. Well, not spacey, but curled up, like it's crimpling up, like a nice fluffy border or something. But there's a method to the madness, and we're going to see how it plays out in a little bit. Alright, so we're doing our shell stitches going all the way around. So 3 more in this. So the pattern is going to be, well, let me get to the end of this one and tell you what it's going to be. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Our pattern is going to be shell stitch, which is, you saw what I almost did? You have to look carefully for the V stitch, right? Which is 3 double crochet. Alright, let's go again. Our shell stitch is 3 double crochet. So 1, 2, 3, 2 spaces or 2 chains, 3 double crochet in the same space. That's our shell stitch. 1, 2, and 3. And then we separate our shell stitches with 4 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we are about to put in our last shell stitch. So let's get to that. And then I'll show you what we're going to do with the next row. Three, 2 chains, 1, 2, and 3. Then we need our 4 chains. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Slip stitch into that 3rd chain to join our row. Alright. So you notice it's a little bit loose. So I'm going to now show you what we're going to be doing with that looseness that we're experiencing. Now, this is very tricky, because what we need to do is to continue with our shell stitches, but we are not in the stitch, we are outside of it. So to get into the stitch, we're going to, so we already have a slip stitch in the first double crochet, the 3 chains. We're going to slip stitch into the next 2 double crochets. That's 1, 2, and then we're going to slip stitch into the chain 2 space. So it's a total of 4 slip stitches that you should have. 1 in each of the double crochets, the 3 chains plus the other 2. 1 in the 2 chain space to end up in the center of the shell. And we're going to go up with our 3 chains. 3. Add 2 more double crochets for 1/2 of our shell. 2 chains in between as usual for our shell stitch. Put in our other 3 double crochets in the same space. 2 and 3. Now, whereas we had 4 chains, and this 4 chain is a little bit loose, what we're going to be doing is this: chain 2, 1, 2, and then on that 4 chain space, we're going to put a single crochet, and to do that we go underneath, pull up our thread, pull through 2, and then we do 2 chains, and we go back to doing our shells. So we put our 3 double crochets in, 1, 2, 3. Something feels wonky. I don't like how that piece looks like it's sticking up a bit. So let's go again. So we're at our 2 chains. So we now start our shell. So we go 1, 2, 3, 2 chains, 1, 2, 3 more, 1, 2, 3. Hey, come on, don't do me like that. 3. See that? See that? All right. Let's do one more before I release you, and we meet back at the end of the row. So the pattern is going to be shell stitch, which we already put in our shell stitch, chain 2, single crochet into the chain 4 space in the row beneath, chain 2, go back to our shell stitch. And we're going to do that all the way around and get to the end of this row. 2 chains, 3 double crochet. You have to watch your shell stitches as well, because sometimes I find myself having put only 2 double crochet rather than 3, and I have to pull out the work all over again. So that's how we're looking. Alright, so meet you at the end. So we are about to do our final shell. So we're putting in our single crochet into that chain 4 space, final shell, two, 3, 2, 1, as I find I'm bringing my hand up and it's coming out of focus, I might as well put the focus where my hand is, right? 2, 3, chain 2, single crochet, chain 2, and we find our 3rd chain, and slip stitch, single chain to anchor it, and we cut off. And there we have it. This is the center of our placemat. center of our placemat. How does it look? So just to remind you now, we started with chain 5, then into the circle, we chained up 4 to start for a double crochet with a chain space in between. Then we put 8 more of that same in the circle, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, for a total of 9 double crochets and 9 chain 1s. Then we chained up 3 and put a double crochet in that same one, and then in the chain 1 space we put another double crochet. Then when we got to the end of that round, we put V stitches going around, and for the V stitches, rather than skip 4 like we did in the border motif, we skip 2 and put a V stitch, and in between the V stitches we have 2 chains. Then for the next row we had our shell stitches, and the shell stitches had 4 chains in between. And for the final row we had shell stitches again, but in between the shell stitches we did 2 chains, single crochet into the chain 4 space, 2 chains, and then we went back to our shell stitch. And that's the center, or layer 1 of our placemat motif. So that's it for this episode of Craft Therapy. Remember, keep those hands busy, busy hands, so that your mind will be at peace. Happy crafting.